Good morning again from Silicon Valley. This is Marco Marinucci with Mind the Bridge. Today, as part of our deep dives in the MENA region, we have the pleasure of hosting Fahad Al-Shahadi, Senior Vice President of Corporate Venture Capital at Agility. Hi, Fahad.
Good morning. Hey, good morning, Marco. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Very glad to have you here. And looking forward to our conversations today. We want to talk about logistics, obviously in the activities that you guys run at Agility, your role within the corporate venture capital side. Here's a picture of Agility Logistics, but also we want to talk about a little bit of macro trends of the MENA region, GCC somewhat, and the impact of logistics and potentially the future of logistics for the region. So there's a lot to learn, and we are very excited to have you here. You come from a very international background. You spent a good amount of time in a lot of places, and you studied in US, and you spent I think at least 10 years in China. Why don't you describe a little bit of what took you to Agility?
Sure. So I think my career when I started in a different sector in a different part of the world. I was in the energy sector as a Kuwaiti, selling oil and working in the oil business. After that, I got an opportunity to go to China. And during that period, I did a very great shift in China. I moved from trading oil and selling oil to the tech side of the business and investing in the early startups in China. And that's where I got, let's say, interested in the tech sector of the world. And 2015, I came back to Kuwait, and I was very happy to join Agility and lead their venture team here in Kuwait in the Middle East. And since that time, it was a great journey. Agility itself is a startup. I mean, maybe some people don't know Agility's story, but Agility used to be called the Public Warehouse Company, which was a ministry department in Kuwait. And now we're a 22,000 employees company. We have offices all the way from West Coast, all the way to the east of Beijing. So I think Agility, we're a very entrepreneurial company, and we support all of these new ventures and new technologies. And as Agility itself, I think there is a strategic move a few years ago. We saw what happened to the travel sector. We saw what happened to the fintech sector. So we want to be part of the pioneers of the technology in logistics sectors in the next 10 years. We know if we don't adapt, if we don't be agile, if we don't be Agility as Agility, in 10 years, we'll have no value to be in the market. So this is the main reason we created this venture team, to be ahead of the curve, to keep Agility as Agility today and tomorrow and after tomorrow.
And we're going to talk about the venture team and your focus shortly. I just want to talk a little bit about your world of reference, logistics. That is definitely one of the key industries these days, and we know also how important that is for the world in general, but also in particular for your region. So you just mentioned it's a startup with 25,000 people, more than 5 billion in revenues. The headquarters are in Kuwait, but I think you operate in more than 100 countries, if I remember correctly. So give us a little bit of a sense of the size of the business and what are the subset of the activities that you run as a leader in logistics.
Great. I mean, Agility itself we started as a warehouse company. That was our original name, was Public Warehouse Company. And we started building industrial parks here in the region. And our CEO that time, Mr. Tariq Sultan, which is our current CEO, he's a Wharton graduate. He's a very entrepreneur guy. He decided to build a grade A quality services here in the Middle East. And that was like 25 years ago. And at that time, everybody was laughing, why should you have a warehouse? We built our first data center that time. We tried to kick off an e-commerce stores, 20 years ago here in the Middle East. So Agility itself, they tried to be ahead of the curve, and it's paid out on a long-term basis. When any major client comes, any grade A client, any global client from Apple to P&G to all of these people, Agility was the first player they wanted to work with. And we had better opportunities to grow faster and better. And we try to use that to the max. Today, we're very focused still on the globe, but we're trying to be ahead of our game in the Middle East and Africa. So most of our growth or most of our investments in logistics and freight forwarding is in Middle East and Africa in the next 10 years. We built the new 5 facilities in Africa in the last 2 years. We're trying to expand more in Africa as a logistic company. One thing about logistics, which people will not maybe think that it's going to be changed or reshaped in the next future. At the end, you're all going to have to move an apple from some farm all the way to the consumer market. This thing will never happen digitally. So it's different maybe than the fintech sector, the other sectors. The best thing you're always going to have to focus when you work with logistics is to enhance your performance and optimize your performance. So that's how we're looking at it in the future.
And in terms of a little bit of history, how you developed also, again, you were born in Kuwait, but now we are very international by nature. Is there, how has logistic, changed in the last 20 years? Is the goods that you're moving, are they significantly different from 20 years ago? And also the means of transportation and, what the market is requiring, is that much different?
So of course, yeah, it depends on the demand and the needs of the people during any kind of period. Sometimes it's agriculture, sometimes it's construction. I mean, I'll be very frank, in 2020, which was the medical year, all of the construction materials were down, other sectors were down, and the food sector was up, the health sector was up. And so you're always going to have a balance between products and sectors, which grows and which the shrinks in the market. But at the end, the logistic trend is still growing and enhancing, and that's a good thing for us. So maybe before people ship a PC, now people ship 10 iPhones. So you always have that volume which people need to from point A to point B.
Yeah, and has commerce and e-commerce in particular, become significant in the activities that you run as logistics, but also through the value chain of the logistic.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you on that, and that's what we were telling you about our new strategy. Identity was always a B2B player. That was the market. That was the structure of the market. The previous 2 decades. So the last 2 decades, everything was B2B. Everybody's focused to serve the bigger players. Now with all of this e-commerce and moving from B2B to B2C, we're trying to adapt on that, and that's not easy for a corporate company. So yeah. We're used to have one large client, you serve him, you're happy, he's happy, and that's it. Now you have 1,000 small customers. You need to make sure all of them are happy. So it's a shift in the way we're working. That's why we're building our venture team. And most of our activities in the venture team, we're building a company called Shippa, which is an Expedia or booking of the logistics sector here in the region. And that's how we're trying to adapt and be one of the first players in that sector. And it's not an easy challenge.
So let's talk about the venture side of agility. And I think this is a good link with what we were talking about. Tell us a little bit on a little bit of the history, and I think you already kind of express it as the potential for gathering new business models and taking advantage of new potentials or development of the market. But when was the activity started? How many years ago? And what's the main structure of the venture side?
So Agility itself was a very tech company from the beginning, before we have even a venture team. So we were very focused on the tech. We were one of the first people to have a data centers here in the region. And we even have our black site of data centers. So we tried to be ahead of our curve in the technology side. In 2015, we started investing in new startups. We invested in a company called Cargo X in Brazil. And we started looking at the light assets of the business. And that was the main focus. We were trying to move from our current heavy asset structure to have an optimization on the light assets. So we know that we're going to still have a lot of heavy assets, but there's some businesses which we want to have it in a light asset model. Trucking, last mile delivery. There's things which you don't need to run on the assets in that structure. And at that point, we decided to create the venture team to be like, let's consider to our research and technology, R&D, whatever in that kind of sector. So it helped us grow that sector, understand it in a better way, and be successful in that area. So in 2015, we started a small team. And since that journey started, and we've been growing the team, and now we're already 7 people. And we have 3-4 companies we incubated. We have Shippa Delivery, Shippa Ecommerce, Hamula. We invested in a company called Expand Cart in the e-commerce sector, another company called Zid in Saudi. And we invested several companies in the fintech in the US. So we're trying to start learning what things we need and how we're going to go ahead to the future. So we're trying to balance between two sectors. Either we invest in a small ticket in some of the companies, and if there's something which is our core business, we're trying to incubate them and try to be a better connection with them so they can grow faster and we can cover that market in a much better way.
So here we see the landing page of the Agility Ventures in your website, so that there's also a description of some of the ventures that you invested or created. That's the interesting part that I want to address, is kind of the mix between investment in third parties or what goes under the definition of a venture building. So some of those ventures, I think you started really from scratch, from within. Can you describe how that process works in terms of origination of the idea, the business, and then the scaling?
So again, I think the main driver is our board and our CEO, Mr. Tariq Sultan, has been pushing us to try to move Agility to be ahead of her in the technology sector. So the venture building is the main focus of our team, honestly. So we're trying to find the right teams, find the right sector to invest. We're always a B2B. So most of our new venture buildings are in the B2C. It's a new sector for us. It's a different team. It's a challenging thing, especially B2C here in the Middle East and Africa. So it's not like in Europe or in US, you have that good infrastructure of payments or credits or even addresses, I'll put it this way. So we've been enjoying the venture building here for the last 3 years. The first company we did as a venture building was called Shippa Delivery. They're a last mile delivery company. They're a light assets. And that was our kickoff of a venture building. Then we went after that and built another company called Hamula, which means in English, trucks. And they're like Uber for freight or Cargo X or what. Yeah, so on for these kind of companies. So we started that company in Saudi Arabia, and now it's already expanded to the whole GCC. And we hope this is going to be one of our successful stories here in the region.
How do you process the potential selection of the new businesses? Is there a formal process, or you kind of have an ongoing process where feeds of potential opportunities come to you, and then you decide to double down or to accelerate on one specific area?
Okay, sure. So again, most of our venture builders are in our core businesses. So either it's in trucking or in e-commerce and these kind of sectors, which are already big major chunk. Maybe they were not directly with us in the previous decades, but we know going ahead, we need to be part of this kind of sector. As an example, our warehouse near our main office, we have six of the larger e-commerce companies in Kuwait storing with us. If you go to Saudi Arabia, this is the same way. If you go to Dubai, it's the same way. So e-commerce is part of part of the logistics in the future. Before it was like 1%. I think now it's going to be reaching 34 to 40%. And maybe in another decade, it's going to be 80% of the business. So that's one of the reasons we're trying to focus on our core businesses. So either industrial parks, warehouses, and related to that kind of services, or either in the freight forwarding and transportation, either sea, land, or air. These are the places which we try to be more on the venture building. On the other sides of the businesses, we're not very experienced, so we're trying to learn and adapt to that areas. And there's where the areas we write smaller checks, where we try to explore new areas, maybe in more emerging, more developed markets like in the US or Europe or even China. So that's how we're working it out. Core businesses, we try to be venture builders, and non-core business, we're trying to be more a VC.
Back to the venture building. So one of the examples, I think the Shippo that you were just mentioning, how was the process of the creation? So did the idea start from within? Do you have an internal process to select internal ideas, and then from there you go through as other corporates at your size do, or is more opportunistic?
No, as I explained, we're trying to focus on our core businesses, and we know that delivery is going to be part of our core business in the next 10 years. It was part of the board decision to move ahead in these kind of sectors.
So it comes really from top management.
It was a top-bottom direction, the kind of that sectors. Now with the growth and with our exposure to the market and with the network of the team, we're trying to go both ways: top, bottom, bottom up, top.
Got it. And I've seen actually also your chairperson is fully involved in the venture side. So do you think that the involvement of top management is one of the key to success of why you guys are accelerating that part of the business?
I mean, I'll put it this way, because we think this is one of our most important people. Hanadi Salah, she's our chairperson. She's like the person in charge of the team. To give it the opportunity and give it all of the importance in the company. So that's a really, really good move from Agility.
Yeah, so clearly that matters, when you have the support and the sponsorship that comes really from the top. We see how really the results are at a different level. How do you staff those new ventures? Do you do it from inside? So do you also have a process of really moving people and offering them opportunities to grow internally? Is that something that you keep it outside as a new venture, as a real startup, also not contaminated, if you will, by the all the sins of the big companies, or is that something that actually you grow from within?
So when was the last time you worked in a corporate? You.
The last time, well, I was working for Google for 10 years, but when I started was a startup, and then became a company of 100,000 people when I left. So it was pretty quick.
That was how long? 5-10 years ago?
Was probably 8 years ago. Yes.
8 years ago. Okay, good for you. So again, you're totally correct. So the corporates have their own structure to handle things. We're trying our best to try to spin them off and let them run on their own agile structure. But then, especially because of their venture building and we're responsible in building them, we're very active with them. So we created our own units for like technology, our own units for finance, to support these kind of 3-4 companies we're venture building. And we're trying to keep it, as you said, there's a distance, but with a certain supervision on them. So we have quarterly calls. So the venture builders, they run there by themselves. They're totally separate. They go and hit the ground by themselves. And we have a board which is like from different sectors in internal agility to just support them and run over and see what's going on with them. So that's how they're getting run so far.
Got it. And are you creating those as new businesses, or those are fully owned by Agility? Also try to understand if there are opportunities for the people that you involve to be more entrepreneurial, so also there might be an upside on the equity side of the new businesses.
So maybe one of our successful stories is called, the company is called TriStar. Maybe it's not in the tech sector. It's a company in the logistics sector. We invested in the company, I think 15 years ago. They're very specialized logistics and chemicals. And we invested in the company, 15 years ago. And one of the conditions that the management keeps their position, the company keeps their shares. And even 4 or 5 years ahead, they went and said, we were willing to sell our shares. We rejected them to sell their shares. We told them, if you want to stay in the company, you have to keep your shares. And we just did a round with this company, and they're going to go maybe, I think, hopefully in the next 2 years, IPO'd. We invested, I remember that time was maybe around 20 million or $30 million at that time. We just did a new round, which is a public round, or public news, sorry, not public round. We raised $100 million for 20% of the company. So Agility tries to keep this, and this company has been running separately. We support them, we give them leads. Yes, correct. But the core business and their P&L, no, they get run separately. So they perform in the best way they can perform.
Interesting. And so you also raise capital in the market, so from different investors, and as you were saying, with the ability potentially to go all the way to IPO.
Yes, correct. Because I mean, you're gonna have to change your structure every 10 years. Own companies, dissolve companies. This happens in the markets.
Yeah. Cool. Whereas that's interesting on the venture building. Whereas on the pure investment and the VC side, do you have a separate entity, or you invest off balance?
No. So again, we've been investing off our balance sheet. We've been working with some funds here and there, but most of our investments are off our balance sheets and direct investments. And again, it's more like an R&D. We're trying to be very focused on things which are relative to agility. Even if something in the fintech, as an example, I'll go find something which is in the micro lending, which is more reasonable to us. or for the credits for the working capital. So even in investments in different sectors, we need to be sure that they're relative to our core business. So we're not going to go and invest in a payment gateway or in a real estate and a housing app. That will be off our checklist.
Got it. And how many investments do you do in the last? I mean, again, you have a history of a little bit more than 5 years. What's the rate of investment?
We do average every year 4 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
And depends. Some of them are like a 4 million, 5 million tickets, and some of them is $150,000. Depends on the appetite of the sector.
And also, and I've seen also, throughout different regions, it's not necessarily concentrated in a specific region.
So I totally agree with you. They're not very concentrated in the region, but we're trying to be more focused on the Middle East and Africa because we think that's where everybody's missing the opportunity. And as we did 20 years ago, we got the better returns of building our logistics company here in the Middle East and Africa. We think even investing in these tech startups in the Middle East and Africa in the next 10, 15 years, it's going to be more rewarding than investing in Europe or in the US.
That's a very interesting point. I would like to open up a little bit more. Before, what is now in the areas of investments, what is the importance of sustainability in your business? Just reading, again, logistics, Amazon, and now it keeps communicating that it wants to be CO2 neutral by 2040. It seems like quite a bit of time. And a number of companies actually are moving sustainability at the top of their priorities. How important is the areas of sustainability in your decision in the both venture building and investments? Does it play any role?
No, that's a very core part of agility in the last 4 years. So part of our annual report, we're creating an annual report of sustainability and green. So since 4 years ago, every year we have to issue a report, how we're doing sustainability, how much CO2 emissions, and we're trying to be more enhanced in that kind of sector and how can we improve our green footprint on the world. We did one investment in that sector, and that was the reason. It was a company called TVP out of Switzerland, and they came with a concept which we thought was very great for the Middle East. They create like thermal solar panels. So they're like collectives that Google invested in, but they're more like a panel. So we already kicked off 3-4 projects with them here in the Middle East, and we hope this will be a very good investment for us and a very good green position for us, honestly, because they save a lot of energy. So we've been looking at that sector, but still it's very difficult, especially with logistics. You have to move trucks and fuels and cars. So we'll see what can we do on that. And the other thing, energy consumption in Middle East and Africa is very high, especially with their air conditioning. So it's not only about lighting. 80% of the energy consumption in this part of the region is air conditioning. It's not even actual lighting.
It's true, and actually, I was surprised when I was there the last time to see there's still very little solar panels. It's not so developed as you would expect, right? I mean, clearly the amount of solar that you guys are getting, at least if we're talking GCC, is significant. So you could think that that again could be a great opportunity for development.
I'll answer that very fast because I was working with TP for a while, supporting them as one of our investments. First of all, most of the panels were built for Europe and for US, so their temperature maximum should be 30 degrees. After 30 degrees, it's like any electrical device, they start underperforming. So the panels which work very good in US or in Europe, when you bring them to the Middle East, they perform very bad. The second thing, these panels will not support you for opening an air condition. They're good for lights, but even if you have hundreds of panels, they cannot give enough energy or power to start an air condition. It's like when you have 100 trucks, mini Coopers, they cannot pull a trailer. So you need one big engine to pull the trailer. So that's to simplify the concept of the green or solar TV panels here in the region, and that's why they're not very popular.
Yeah, so there's still a technology gap that hopefully will be filled soon, because you would think that it's a national revolution. Speaking of the evolution of the economy there, again, we just had a conversation with some of the managers of the expo in Dubai, talking about the future of obviously the post oil century economy. Logistics has always been mentioned as one of the key industries and pillars of the economy as well. How do you see the potential development of the economy in the region, starting from the GCC, from your point of view?
So I think our governments are very cautious about what's going on, and with the new oil prices. So they're trying to move away as much as they can from the oil prices and create more sustainable economies, more realistic economies. So in any economy in the world, logistics should be 20% of the GDP, as an example, serving, last mile delivery, warehousing, and all of that sector. So I think this is the right move from our governments here in the region, that we have to move from our social system to a more capitalist system with more, real GDP coming from the private sector. Either it's in the logistics or in the education or in the health. It's going to be a challenge. People have been raised for the last 40 years as a social system. Sometimes I call it a communist with rich countries. So it's going to be a challenge to change behaviors of government and people and accept the new reality.
So creating more appetite also for entrepreneurship. That's something that we've been working with, in particular with Kuwait, for now a good 8-9 years, and we've seen the really the market maturing over time, right? A little step at a time, but clearly that mentality and mindset is it takes time, before, and it takes also a number of success stories for people to follow to create really a movement. So I want to conclude with that thought with the two. First, what is today, you think, the biggest challenge to build those disruptive new businesses at scale, though, so at a unicorn size in GCC?
So again, for me, I never take GCC as its own unit. So if I'm going to build a unicorn, I need to be relative to Iraq, to Syria, to Egypt, to all of those bigger economies around us here in the region. So again, if there's a challenge, is this cross borders between these states. There's still, as 20 years ago, to move a truck from Saudi Arabia to Kuwait, it gets stuck in the border usually from a day to a day and a half, just to have some certain documents between two governments. So this is always I think, my hardest challenge, until governments smoothen their relations between each other and make documents and cross-bordering much smoother. Then we're going to have, I think, dozens of unicorns in the logistics and non-logistics.
So you're seeing that really the simplification of the communication between at least the members of the regions to make the area more significant also from a consumer side is one of the biggest challenges today that still has to be addressed.
Again, it's, as you said, it's the cross-border. If the cross-border is resolved and smooth in between these countries, I think we're going to have a very fast growth in the logistics sectors and non-logistics sector. And
let's finish with what is the biggest opportunity that you see from the region?
So we're still a very young population. Average of the population is below 30 years old. So I still think e-commerce is going to be one of the biggest sectors in the next decade. E-commerce, the e-commerce enablers. So that's where we focus as Agility Venture. We're trying to find things in the e-commerce and what can enable e-commerce to go faster. Either it's last mile delivery, returns, better e-fulfillment centers. So that's going to be the focus, I think, for our team in the next decade.
Cool. So we're looking forward to see more unicorns. Actually, I've seen a few that in the region that are around the unicorn, around the e-commerce in general. So Fahad, sorry, say it again?
You supported a lot of them in the past 5 to 6 years.
Congratulations, because it looks like it's definitely a movement that is starting there. We met a couple when I was there, and there's definitely space and appetite to build more of those. So
some of them mind the bridge trip to the US.
Yeah, we can. We're looking forward to host more of those and open more bridges as possible. Fahad, it's been a pleasure. We really congratulate you with the activities that you guys are doing, and we really wish you great and more successes for the future. And looking forward to meet you in person. Thank you.
Hopefully.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.